So regular viewers will probably know by now that I am a bit of a knob, and I certainly have a problem with impulsively buying things off eBay that are financially destructive, so to speak. And well, I've done it again. But this time it was too cheap to miss. So underneath this cover is a car that in 2007 cost £91,000. Inflation adjusted, in today's money that is not much shy of £150,000. And well, I bought it for £200. And just like a budget Father Christmas with these red trousers, I'm going to unveil it right now. So without further ado, here is my 2007 Aston Martin V8 Vantage. So I know what you're probably thinking. There's not a lot of Aston left, but for £200 there's actually quite a lot of Aston left. And let me show you. Tonneau cover, boot, windscreen, wheel nut, explosives, slimline steering wheel, and my favourite feature of all, lightweight rear quarter. But don't worry, even though that would be a financially logical choice to strip the good parts off it, sell it, make some profit, be done, I'm not going to do that. But with that also said, I'm not going to be a complete idiot and try and rebuild this, because by the time I've done that, sourced an engine, all the tons and tons of parts needed, well, I could have just bought one for cheaper. So, what am I going to do with it? Well, before telling you that, I'd like to say we now have merchandise. Keep warm this winter with the lovely, high quality, eco-friendly Hudson Auto merchandise line. I'm not good at this. We've got hoodies, t-shirts, bags, mugs, all that sort of thing. Any money made goes straight into these stupid builds and helps me make more content. So please consider checking it out. The link is below or up here somewhere. And yeah, great Christmas present, just saying. But anyway, back to what you're here for. Well, there is one slight caveat. Here in the UK, if a car is crashed, flooded, whatever, it is written off and it is given a category. And those categories dictate what can be done with it in the future, whether it can be sold at a salvage auction rebuilt or whether it's sold and parted out. Unfortunately, this one is the worst of them all. It can no longer go back on the road. So even if I had all the parts and infinite budget to turn it back into a V8 Vantage, which would be stupid anyway, I couldn't. So that might sound like a bad thing, but actually, for me, that gives me full creative license to do something crazy with it, without any worries of the purists coming and saying, you shouldn't have done that, because really, the choices are, we do something crazy with it, or it's left to rot. It has been in a junkyard for 15 years. Doing something a bit bizarre with it seems less sacrilegious than just letting something that special decay any further. Don't mind me, just with my Aston Martin. So we can't use this chassis or this identification to make it a car. So essentially all this is a bunch of body panels and something which resembles what once was an Aston Martin. So the only choices we really have are turn it into a boat, an ornament, or put it on an alternative chassis. And for me, I want to see it on the road again in some format. So that means put it on an alternative chassis. But unlike other countries where you can seemingly chop chassis in half and bolt cars onto them, there is a lot more red tape in the UK. Unless you want to go through extensive inspection and all that sort of thing, which you probably won't get through, you need to put it on a chassis which is unmodified. So you can't start chopping it in half, making it longer, shorter. You have to get something which you can literally put an alternative body on the chassis without modifying it at all. You can modify this as much as you want to fit on it, but the chassis must stay as it was from factory. So that kind of limits us to Land Rovers, TVRs, Triumphs, or Reliance, that sort of thing. But let's face it, putting this body on a 60s Triumph chassis with a 2-litre engine would be the most boring thing in the world. So it kind of cuts out a lot of the easy options because it would just be pointless and ridiculous. And ridiculous is fine, but pointless is not fine, I think. So I suppose that limits us to a TVR or a Land Rover. So two very different directions. But I'm not a big fan of replicas. And let's face it, if we put a TVR underneath it, we'd essentially be building a less capable, significantly worse engineered fake Aston. And that just seems dull. So that's out. And truly, I just want to build something purely fun, something silly, ridiculous, that makes you smile when you drive it and makes people smile when you drive past them. I think that is ultimately the goal of this build. We have a lot of serious builds on this channel where we're restoring the other Astons, and that is a completely different kettle of fish. But I'd like to have some more light-hearted fun, I suppose. So without telling you explicitly, I think you can kind of guess what we're going to do with that Aston. The goal is to get it done by spring, because who doesn't want a nice convertible car to drive around in the nice summer we have in England, albeit very brief. She is a beauty. A lot of this will just buff out, I'm sure. A bit of elbow grease, a lot of elbow grease, even more elbow grease off. I've run out of elbow grease. So I better get to work. Please tune in next week, subscribe, all that sort of thing. In the next episode, we are bracing the 1969 Aston Martin DBS. And very soon after that, we will be stripping down a certain British 4x4. So lots is coming. So please join along for this craziness. Like, subscribe, share, all that sort of thing. Thank you so much for watching as always. I'm really pleased to be able to share my silly ideas with you all. But until next time, thank you and take care.